Hey guys, what's up? This is Marco from Nerd Boys Comic Blog, and today I'll be talking about some of my favorite issues from last week. Yeah, Charles and I were supposed to be recording this immediately after our Secret Empire spoiler cast, but that didn't really work out so well. We got sidetracked and distracted, so now I'm recording this all by myself. And this week I'll be talking about Action Comics number 987, Dark Knight's Metal number 2, Mr. Miracle number 2, and Runaways number 1. Now there will be spoilers for all these books, and I'll leave timestamps in the description and in the comment section below. But yeah, this will be spoiler heavy for every one of these books. If you haven't read them, I suggest you go read them, pick them up. If you're not interested in these books and you just want to hear my review and opinion about them, that's fine too. Anyway, let's get started with Action Comics number 987. Alright guys, spoiler warning ahead for Action Comics number 987, because this is the issue where you do find out the identity of Mr. Oz, and if you haven't read the issue yet and you don't want to be spoiled, I suggest you skip ahead to the next review, because we're going into it right now. So, Superman Action Comics number 987, it mainly focuses on Superman trying to prevent all these world disasters. Now, Mr. Oz is behind all these. You do see a lot of the characters in this comic bearing the tattoo of Oz, and as Superman tries to prevent all these natural disasters or catastrophes, or mostly man-made disasters and catastrophes, things like oil spills, wars, mass shootings, arsony, things of that sort, he's going all over the place trying to halt, stop, prevent, protect, but he just can't make it in time. A village in Africa is under siege. A village that he had just brought vaccines to earlier in the issue is now being destroyed by guerrilla forces. It's tragic, and Superman is powerless to stop any of this. As strong as he is, he can't be everywhere at once, and he asks why? Why are they doing this? What is going on here? And Mr. Oz comes to him in his moment of utter desperation, and he says, because these people are petty and they don't deserve you, Kal-El, and I never should have sent you here. And that is when you get the big shocker moment that Mr. Oz this entire time has been Jor-El, Superman's father. Now take note that this Jor-El, we don't know what's up with him yet. We haven't gotten the big reveal of his origins, but we do know that this is Jor-El. Maybe a parallel universe Jor-El, maybe something else, but he is scarred. Half of his face is scarred. You don't know if that was from the destruction of Krypton or some accident after that. That's going to be in the next issue, but this reveal is pretty big. Even though it was leaked about 2 months ago on the internet, and a lot of the comic book news sites did report on this, I did read a bunch of those articles, and even I couldn't believe it back then. I couldn't believe that Jor-El was Mr. Oz this entire time. It wasn't until this issue came out that I actually was like, wow. I had to take a step back and look back at everything Mr. Oz has done up until this point, because he's been collecting a lot of DC characters. He's collected Doomsday, Tim Drake, Mr. Mxyzptlk. He's had them imprisoned in his own little fortress, and this whole time a lot of fans had speculated Mr. Oz would be Ozymandias from the Watchmen comics, because it just kind of made sense. It actually sounds like it. Ozymandias. And it kind of fitted with this whole thing of DC Rebirth being affected by the Watchmen. But no, it just turns out Mr. Oz has been Jor-El this entire time, which kind of works better for me because it's closer to Superman's mythology. It would make more sense for a character like Jor-El to be so focused and single-minded on observing Superman and his family, Lois and Jonathan Kent. And I can't wait to see what happens next. I can't wait to see the struggle between Kal-El and Jor-El, because it seems like they have very differing opinions on humanity. Superman, this sentinel of truth, justice in the American way, and Jor-El seems so jaded and disillusioned by humanity. I'm really curious to see the conversation they're going to have, and Kal-El kind of stepping up and being like, you're no father to me, or maybe just having a good man-to-man talk with his biological father. It almost kind of reminds me of like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 in a way, but anyway, that's besides the point. Action Comics number 987 was such a damn good book, not only for the reveal, but just to show like how much Superman cares about humanity in general. He's not a character who's gonna let everyone die. He's not a character who's gonna make calculated risks. He's a character who's trying to save everyone, and he can't do it. No matter how powerful he is, he can't protect the world, especially from itself. But all these incidences were caused by Mr. Oz, and when Superman finds out about that, he's gonna be even more pissed. But yeah, moving on from Superman and going on straight to Batman, we're gonna talk about Dark Knight's Metal number 2. Dark Knight's Metal number 2 is another issue that kind of does a lot more setup than payoff. There are a lot of great and interesting things that happen in this book. The Bat family does go up against the Justice League. Clayface is involved too. Justice League kind of fights off against Swamp Thing. A lot of great things, drawn perfectly by Greg Capullo, and that does take about half of the issue, the whole hunt for Batman, because he's stolen something, and we don't know what it is, but lo and behold, by the end of the issue, you find out that he has stolen a baby Darkseid. Yeah, this is a baby version of Darkseid from the end of Darkseid Wars, and Batman's plan is to use the Omega Sanction Beam shot off by this baby Darkseid, the Omega Sanction Beam from Final Crisis, to go back in time to fight Barbados before he could even set his plan into motion. It's a little bit ridiculous. I love it. It's the sillier side of comics. It's the side of comics that, you know, if you've been reading for like many years, it's kind of ridiculous, but it does like build build up, and there's a little bit of payoff here. If you've been reading Final Crisis and, Court of Owls, I mean, especially with the Court of Owls stepping in and saying, like, Bruce, you've been playing into our hands this entire time. The whole plan from the Court of Owls is to use Batman as a counterweight to Barbatos. While he's in the Dark Multiverse, Barbatos will be lifted up because Bruce Wayne's soul is being weighed down by these 5 metals. The 5 metals have kind of been, unbeknownst to Batman, been consumed into his body through different events like Court of Owls, Endgame, Mr. Bloom. All these stories have had Batman kind of exposed to the metals. And now, it's the big payoff. The Court of Owls has set their plan in motion and used Batman as a sacrifice to bring about their dark Bat Demon God, and along with him, the evil Batman that we've been promised from the beginning of Dark Knight's Metal. Yes. Heck yes. Hopefully issue 3 has a lot more evil Batman stuff in it. I was on the fence about it last week. Now I'm totally on board for picking up these tie-ins and checking out each one of these Batman because they're insane looking. You have a Batman that's kind of like the Joker with all these Robin minions. You have a Doomsday Batman, you have a Wonder Woman Batman, you have Aquaman Batman, you have a Flash Batman, Green Lantern Batman. It's something that I was like excited for. Dark Knight's Metal hasn't lived up to its metal name yet, like Metal Rock. Hopefully issue 3, 4, 5 and all the tie-ins rectify that. Other than that, Dark Knight's Metal #2, it's a good book, very continuity heavy, so if you're a little bit confused, don't worry. It requires you to know like comics from about 5 or 10 years ago, and if you were a new reader, I don't blame you for being lost. If you're a Batman reader, there's going to be a lot of stuff that calls back to, previous storylines, somewhat of payoff, but mostly just setting more things up. Alright, now let's move on to Mr. Miracle #2 from DC Comics, written by Tom King, with art from Mitch Gerads. I think I'm saying it right this time, Mitch Gerads. I'm so glad that a book like Mr. Miracle is coming out each month. Like, this is a book I can rely on. Every month is going to be damn good. Tom King is one of my favorite writers right now because of this book. It's amazing. And the art from Mitch Gerads is even better this issue around. And I take back a few things I said in the last review about Mr. Miracle. I don't think it's a dream anymore. I think this is actually happening. I think a few tweets from Tom King have confirmed that this does take place in the DC Rebirth continuity, and even though it's a little bit contradictory to a few other things that are happening right now with, Darkseid War and all that stuff, and Dark Knight's Metal in particular, because Darkseid is our main villain for this, even though we haven't seen him, but I don't think a baby would be leading an army of parademons. But whatever. I'm actually not going to go too far into the plot of each issue of Mr. Miracle because I want everyone to pick up these issues. I want to highly recommend that you read these comics. If you are a DC fan, a fan of DC Comics that loves the New Gods, or even if you don't know about the New Gods, you should definitely check this out just out of curiosity. The closest mainstream thing I could think to compare this new Mr. Miracle series to would be, I think, Game of Thrones, because Tom King has thrown in a lot of elements of Game of Thrones into this high sci-fi fantasy world created by Jack Kirby. So I'm going to take back what I said. I will briefly talk about this because if you're slightly interested in the premise of issue 2, you're going to love reading the rest of this series. Highfather is gone, and Orion has now taken up the mantle. He's taken up the throne as the new Highfather. The rightful heir to the throne should be Mr. Miracle, should be scot-free, because he's the biological son of Highfather. Orion is the biological son of Darkseid, and has been adopted by Highfather in a truce, a treaty between New Genesis and Apocalypse. It seems that the treaty might be broken between them because they're now at war. Rightfully, the throne should go to scot-free, and I feel like most of these issues are going to deal with that subplot, the subplot of who should take the throne of New Genesis and what's going on with Darkseid. I cannot wait to find out what happens next, and I love each and every issue of this series so far. There's only 2 so far, but I love it. I want to get these issues as soon as they come out. Like, I'm not going to wait a week like other storylines. This is a story that I'm like, I need this now. I'd say pick it up. I'm not going to talk about it any further. Instead, I'm going to go straight into Runaways #1, written by Rainbow Rowell with art by Chris Anka. Runaways #1 is a continuation of a series that ended about 10 years ago. Yeah, the Runaways is a group that was founded maybe in like 2003, I think. So almost 15 years ago. And the book really struck a chord with young teen audiences back then. Some of those readers now in their late 20s, early 30s. The current series seems like it's going directly for that audience again. An audience that might have outgrown a team like the Runaways. I think the best way this series could have started out would be to try and get the people who are interested in reading about Runaways from the new Hulu series. If you are a Runaways fan from the new Hulu series, it hasn't come out yet, but if you do become a fan, I think you should start back with the first volume that came out from Brian K. Vaughan. on, that would be your jumping on point, because this series is geared heavily towards the pre-existing Runaways fan base. Or the writer, who is also a young adult author by the name of Rainbow Rowell, is a self-proclaimed Runaways fan, and you can definitely tell that this comes from a genuine place of caring for her. She cares deeply about this book, the series, these characters that she's writing about, and I'm excited to see that from a writer at Marvel. Like, I really want to see what she can do with this book, where it's going to go, and the premise of Chase going back in time to save Gert, bring her into the future, it's very reminiscent of All New X-Men for me, the Brian Michael Bendis All New X-Men series that came out about 4 years ago. It reminds me a lot of that, but hopefully a little bit better. I know a lot of people have said straight off the bat that Runaways #1 is a SJW Marvel comic, and I have to say I don't see it. I can't see it at all. Like, this issue doesn't seem to be pushing any like SJW politics or an agenda of any sort. It's literally just Chase going back in time to save Gert, and them spending about a whole issue trying to take out a knife from her stomach and suture the wounds. An action that could take about 3 minutes in any other comic, but it takes about a whole 22 pages from this comic. The only thing this issue would be guilty of is, I think, decompressed storytelling. Granted, Nico in the story isn't really an experienced magician, so I can understand why it takes her so long and she's fumbling over her spells so much, and hopefully that's built upon later, like she gains experience or she trains with a magician or a sorcerer like Doctor Strange, some character who could give her some guidance. I'm not a huge Runaways fan. I'm actually completely new to the comics. I only briefly know about them through conversations with friends or with my wife, who's a big Runaways fan, and I hope for all those old Runaways fans this is a good series for them. For the rest of us, I just hope it's a damn good book from Marvel. I have hope that it could be a good book from Marvel, because that's really something I need right now. Just a good book that I could buy each month and be entertained. Well, there you have it, my reviews and kind of recaps for Superman Action Comics number 987, Dark Knight's Metal number 2, Mr. Miracle number 2, and Runaways number 1. I don't really like to rank or rate these comics in any sort of particular way. I just kind of like to talk about them. They're all pretty good. If I had to make some kind of ranking, I would put Mr. Miracle at the top, Action Comics at the second place, Dark Knight's Metal in third, and in fourth, Runaways number 1. If you guys enjoyed this video, you can leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe. I am Marco from Nerd Boys Comic Blog. I'll see you guys next time.